Welcome again, and thank you for spending your Friday afternoon with us here at Hillwood Estate Museum and Gardens in Washington, D.C. My name is Erin Lurie, and I'm the head of adult audiences. We're so thrilled to be gathering virtually, and I hope that many of you are in the DC area and are able to come and visit Hillwood. It is an absolutely gorgeous time to be there despite the heat. And we do have 3 exhibitions on display right now, which is very unusual for us. We've got an exhibition called The Porcelain Flowers of Vladimir Kanevsky, which is on display through Labor Day inside of the mansion. Christine May's Rich Soil is a sculpture exhibition throughout the gardens. And Roaring Twenties, The Life and Style of Marjorie Merriweather Post, is where we take our inspiration for next month's virtual floral design workshop, and that's on display in the Adirondack building. In just a few moments, I'll drop a link in the chat online so that you can plan your visit. We encourage reservations in advance. You can book online, but you can also just arrive when you are ready. We're open Tuesday through Sunday, 10 through 5. Just a couple of quick notes about today's program. Ami Wilber, who I'll turn us over to in just a moment, will take us through step by step for a demonstration, which should take about 45 minutes. Throughout the demo and arrangement building, Ami will pause regularly for questions. Please feel free to submit your questions through the chat feature, and we'll make sure that we get those to Ami as we go along. I'll do my best to pronounce everybody's Zoom usernames. If you'd like to take a look at tweaking how that appears, you can hit the 3 white dots in the upper right-hand corner and click on the Rename Self button. I know we have friends who are both near and far following along at home, those of you who picked up materials from Hillwood this morning, as well as some of our stalwarts who join us from across the country. After the demo, we'll invite folks who have been creating arrangements with us to stay for a show and tell. Anyone who is interested in sharing their work can turn on their cameras either now or at the end when you're ready to reveal, and we'll give everybody a moment in the spotlight. And that's always one of my very favorite parts of the program. So it's now my pleasure to pass you over to Ami Wilber, who is Hillwood's floral and event decor designer. She joined us in 2016 and has been a star of the virtual workshops.
Hi, everyone. Welcome, and welcome to, I don't know how it is in your region, but if you're in the DC region, it's been quite steamy. So hopefully you guys are inside in some air conditioning, and I think today's workshop is going to be a lot of fun. For me, it's a favorite time of the year because right now the cutting garden is in full bloom. It is absolutely amazing with things that are blooming every day, and the colors and just sort of the vibrancy of the season. So the theme for today's workshop is the cutting garden. And for me, especially, I really wanted to source locally for all of the materials that were picked up today. So if you did pick up materials at Hillwood, they were all supplied from Woolham Gardens, which is a wonderful flower farm that is in Culpeper, Virginia. I highly recommend either looking them up or going to the DuPont Farmers Market. I know they're there every Sunday, or even they do special events at their farm as well. And you can always go down and I think pick your own flowers. And I know they've been doing like yoga classes there in their pavilion. And they also do all kinds of like one-off events. I know that when I was speaking with Bob the other day when he delivered the flowers, they're actually doing a I think some sort of festival this weekend. But anyways, so again, I really did like the idea of being able to source everything locally so that it is something that's very, I would say, indicative of what's actually in our cutting garden, and so that you guys can also figure out what, you know, sort of what's going on locally as well. I don't know if that made any sense. I was distracted for a second. Okay. So
Amy, can I interject briefly? We got a couple of questions. Can you repeat the name of the flower farm?
sure, it's Woollam, Wollam Gardens.
Excellent, and that's the one in Culpeper.
Culpeper, Virginia. Yeah.
Terrific. I'm going to drop that into the chat as well.
Oh, fantastic.
I also just got a note from Bob saying that the pop-ups from chats are a little distracting. If you do not want to see those, the best way to minimize them is to actually open the chat in a new window and then drag that off to the side. That way,
I didn't even know.
That way you won't have it. It's funny. It seems like that's the way to make it more prominent, but that is the best way to kind of hide the chat. I also got a question, and I'm sure we'll talk about this as we go along, but Catherine asked if you could talk about the floral netting, which I'm thinking is the chicken wire to help secure stems.
Yeah. So we're actually going to get started with, you know, the whole sort of like the basics of what we're going to do step by step. So the first thing that I was going to show is the container that we're using today. It's a galvanized tin container. I specifically chose this because to me, it really feels sort of farmy, or kind of like something that you might see, you know, bigger containers of where they're selling flowers by the side of the road sort of scenario. So that's why I really love this sort of tin container.
Excellent. And I got a note. Sorry to keep hopping in. Soon I will stop, I am sure. I got a note from both Jerry and Julia that their containers are leaking a bit. So for anybody who picked up a container, please let me know in the chat. I'll reach out to you following the program. But in the meantime, I'd recommend grabbing another container of the same size.
That is curious, but they're supposed to be sealed and all water ready. So I'm sorry about that, but we can definitely replace those for you and figure something out. Okay, so the chicken wire is what we're going to use instead of floral foam. I like to use the galvanized chicken wire, which is why it's slightly a green color. I don't know if you can kind of see that it's green and it's not that bright silver color. The one thing that I find about the galvanized chicken wire is that it actually prevents rusting a lot faster, and it's really something that you can use over and over again. I always, after I'm finished with an arrangement, I'll like take it out, I'll sort of unfurl it, wash it down, and then let it dry off completely, and then it's ready to go again. So again, this is just a strip of the chicken wire. I'm going to make it into this sort of tube shape first so that the ends are connected. And then I'm gonna just kind of scrunch it to make it into a nice sort of round ball. And then I'm just gonna shove it into my container so that you can see that I have the chicken wire now in the container. I'm gonna tape it off with floral tape. I'm just using a clear floral tape because I like that you can't see it on the container or and I'm going to take this and I'm going to wrap it around the entire base.
I can't see the container, sorry.
So that it does not pop up at all. So what I've done is I wrapped tape around the rim completely. I've made this little crisscross at the top, and now I am sure that my chicken wire will not go anywhere. I have my container on a little Lazy Susan. It's a little bit low because the height of it is going to come into play. But anyway, so if you have a Lazy Susan, I think it's a great tool to use because it really helps you to sort of like look around at your arrangement without having to like physically move it or jostle it too much while you're in the beginning stages of doing your arrangement.
And Amy, are you able to step back a little bit or push the computer forward so that we've got where I am seeing just the tiniest bit of the container?
Yeah, so I have this a little bit low today because the container's high. And so when I start to build it, it's going to come up to about here. If it's a little bit, if it's taller, it's going to cause, it's not going to be in the frame anymore.
And you'll keep, there will be plenty of opportunities as we go along where you can show us if we need a different perspective.
But for now, that's why it's like you just see the very top of it sort of skimming the frame because it's going to get a little bit tall and I want to make sure that it can all fit into the frame. Okay, so I'm going to put the most important element in first, which is my water. Again, we don't put anything into the water. It's just strictly tap water that I'm using right now. And I'm always saying if you have those little packets of floral food, definitely use them if you want to do that. But if you don't have it, it's not a big deal. I find that it's really 50-50 one way or the other if you use it or if you don't. So we are going to get started. I'm going to go through what we have in terms of ingredients today. So one of my favorite things about summer are zinnias. So we've got a lovely array of zinnias. We have some African blue basil, some gomphrena, and then these are sea oats. We have our marigolds. Oopsie. Then we have our celosia, the whole mix of different celosia. And then also our hydrangea. This is the Limelight Hydrangea. So the first thing that I'm going to do today is I'm going to start by greening my container. I'm going to make this a one-sided arrangement. So I'm going to start greening my container from the back to the front. I'm going to start off though with pieces that are going to sort of mark how big and how wide the arrangement is going to be. And the one thing that I love also about summertime, little spider on here. I'm just going to let that go there. All right. Farm fresh. That's why we have little critters on these plants. So anyways, the one thing I love about the summertime is being able to use herbs. And this basil in particular has an amazing smell. I love the sort of purplish tone that it has. It's a little bit of a darker leaf. And then of course it's gone into flower so that you have these beautiful little blooms also on some of the flowering part of the basil. And so these, again, like just looking at the shape of this, it has a beautiful kind of curving shape. I'm going to use that as something to sort of follow along that line. I'm going to cut everything with a nice set of sharp shears on a 45-degree angle. So that way there's more room on the stem for water absorption. And you'll notice that because of the chicken wire and the sort of large holes, that this isn't going to stand up exactly where I want it to go like it would with Oasis. And this is also why we green first. That way, once I do go in with my other stems of blooms, that they'll be a little bit more sort of taking up the space in the chicken wire. So that way it will be a little bit easier then to, place them exactly where you want it to go. So again, I'm sort of starting from the back and then I'm going to work my way towards the front. I'm looking for, again, nice sort of big pieces or like any piece that I think is really interesting. Like I do think this is also a lovely piece. So I'm going to use this as my other piece of the sort of back area of my arrangement. over like so. And it's not quite staying exactly where I want it to go, so I'll be able to sort of fix that in a bit. And then I'm going to take some of these other pieces that are a little bit, and I'm going to make sure that I have no leaves in the water. So I'm going to pull any leaves off that I think are going to hit the water line. And I'm going to start to just fill in slightly with some more of my basil. Like this is a really big kind of piece. So I'm actually going to break this into a couple of different pieces, peel off these basil leaves. Going to then cut. And I'm going to start to fill in the front area a little bit. And if there's anything like dangling like this, I'm just going to snip that off. It's not a big deal. So looking at this, it actually wants to go this way naturally. So I'm going to fiddle around and just put her back there. All right. I'm just going to go in a little bit more. I'm leaving some big sort of open spaces in here. So you can kind of see there's like a big open space there. There's kind of a big open space here. And I'm going to leave that because I'm going to be putting my hydrangea in next. And my hydrangea is going to take up a little bit of real estate. So I want to make sure that there's enough room for it to sit nicely. Okay. So again, as you can probably see, there's this bare spot here and a bare spot over here. And that's where I'm going to go in with my hydrangea next. But before we go and start going in with our hydrangea, are there any questions about the greening part? And again, I can move this back a little bit so you can see what it looks like with the container in view. Kind of see the back and the front. Okay, does anyone have any questions so far? Are we good? Okay.
I think we're good.
So again, these Limelight Hydrangeas I think are really fun. They've got like a little bit of a cone shape to them. They also dry beautifully. So it's something that you can like pull out later on if you want and also try and dry them. But again, like I said, I'm going to put these in where I kind of left these bald spots here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cluster mine in a group of 3. I like to use odd numbers when possible because you can kind of make a triangle and then it makes for a really interesting design and it makes it a little bit easier then also to design the rest of your arrangement. If you're really stuck, you know that you'll have this odd number to work with and it makes it easy to kind of make a pattern that way. And see how, again, I'm starting to make this triangular pattern. I'm going to put my next one here. Just going to adjust this one a little bit to bring it back a little bit more. Okay. So again, I have this little triangular pattern happening right now. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I am going to go in with some of the solution that I have because some of the celosia is nice and tall, and I want to kind of, again, set the boundaries of where I want this in my arrangement. So if you look at this lovely piece of celosia here, it's got this gorgeous curve to her. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to follow the same direction as this basil, and I'm going to make this the highest point of my arrangement. So nothing is going to come beyond the top of this piece of celosia right here. She's going to be back there. Spider crawling around over here. And again, like I said, like I really like the curve of this, so I'm going to use that, and I'm going to have it be a little anchor over here. And again, I'm going to do the same thing where I'm just going to take 3 for right now, so I have an odd number, and I'm going to again make this sort of triangular pattern. So I have 1, 2, and then I'm going to put the third one for 3 there. Pull out some of these bottom leaves. Have this one tucked in a little bit closer. So again, you can see that I have done this sort of triangular pattern with my celosia. It's sort of matching the same triangular pattern of my hydrangea. So then I'm going to go in with some of my bigger zinnias that I have. So I have this gal that I think is quite lovely. And I'm going to place her in here so she has a little bit of feature. So I put her sort of smack dab in the middle. And from here, I'm then going to fill in with more of my zinnias that are sort of the larger blooms. I have a whole array of colors in the zinnias and also with the celosia and the marigolds. So there's a lot of color going on, and I kind of want this to feel like it's, you know, we've done a lot of ones that have been like a little bit more monochromatic or, you know, staying within the same shade palette. But this one I want to be really kind of like bright and really feel like a summer day.
And Amy, that ties in beautifully to a question we got from Gabriella asking about how you make or approach your initial decisions about floral selections and greenery types and, you know, size, color, texture. What sort of things do you tend to look at when you sit down and say, I'm going to make a summer arrangement? Or as you sat down, I just added the photos of the September workshop sample, which are absolutely stunning. How do you sit down and figure out what it is you want to add?
So like for this one, it was really easy because I knew I wanted everything to come out of the cutting garden. So things that are in bloom right now in our cutting garden. And for me, like the cutting garden always has just an amazing array of colors and textures, you know, different heights of things. So it was really just taking the idea of how do I make the cutting garden look like it is contained within an arrangement, which is how I went about this. And so again, that's why I really sort of, you know, went all out. And it was funny because Drew, our horticulturist, he came up and he knows that I like more like muted things or like monochromatic color palettes. And he looked in the cooler, he's like, wow. He's like, that is every color that you could possibly find. So again, I really wanted it to feel like it was, you know, an arrangement that was gives you the memory or the feeling that you're standing in the middle of a cutting garden. And again, because, you know, in the summertime, you know, you have this amazing array of different colors from like zinnias to celosias or like dahlias or whatever it is. So it's kind of fun, and that's why I wanted it to be this sort of like bright arrangement. And typically when I'm doing any kind of arrangement for the week, like right now when the cutting garden is in full bloom, it's just me going out to the cutting garden and seeing what happens to catch my eye that day. You know, like when our sunflowers were in peak bloom, like I'd go out there and I'm like, oh, I love these sunflowers. Like, what can I do with these sunflowers? How can I highlight them? How can I make this into something like a Van Gogh painting? Or, you know, so I'll take a lot of different inspirations from different things and, you know, just see how I can then kind of come up with something that will visually represent what it is that was rattling around in my little noggin. And again, like I'm not afraid to put like pinks and reds together in this kind of an arrangement, because again, you would see that out in your cutting garden. So I'm really going sort of all out and using all the colors that I possibly can. I have a yellow one too. I don't know if that helps or if that answers the question at all.
I think one aspect that Gabrielle mentioned was size and texture. And I know you tend to include at least one very large flower. Like today, it's that Limelight Hydrangea, and it's the coffee colored roses in the September workshop. And then there's also normally something small and delicate and something in the middle.
Correct. So I am always trying to look for a contrast in different size and different texture for most of my arrangements, so that it is visually a little bit more appealing, because you have something that's kind of large and that kind of takes your eye to it immediately. But then there's also other things that are smaller, a little bit more delicate, a little bit more whimsy, that also then kind of complement and add just a little bit of fun to the arrangement, so that it's, you know, I do love when it's all just one single flower or one single color or something like that. But it is also nice to then have something where you are trying to make it a little bit more dynamic, so that you as the creator and as the viewer of your arrangement, you know, can really like look around and your eye is just sort of surprised at all different turns. So
you do such an excellent job with that, and you also really get a sense of the movement, and that flower is a perfect example where you love the ones that have kind of quirky shapes and a mind of their own, because they stand out and they make things so so lovely and joyful.
And so one of the things that I like, which I think sometimes people see as like maybe a fault or something that's like not quite, you know, perfect, because like this gal has her little head and she's all sort of bent over. But I really like how it is, again, taking sort of the line of the arrangement and bringing it up slightly. And because of that, I'm going to just sort of cut this one down a little bit and kind of fix her placement there. And this isn't really sitting where I want it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in some more of my greens, and I'm going to then put this right behind where I want this to kind of stand. So I don't know if you can see what I'm doing right here, but see the way it's leaning this way? I want it to be up a little bit more. So I'm just going to take the green and I'm going to put it into that same hole of the chicken wire, because I can look down and see it, shove it down there, and then it's acting now as a little bit of a support for that. And I'm much happier with the placement of how she's standing now. Okay, so I'm going to keep going now with my marigolds. And again, because some of these marigolds are, you know, 2 to 3 per stem, I don't necessarily want all of these all in one spot. So I'm going to break this down a little bit, and I'm going to figure out where like the longest section of it is. So this one is a nice long stem, so that when I cut it off, I'll still be able to use it in the arrangement. I'm going to peel off all of the leaves from the marigold, and And I'm going to put this short one down in here. And again, I'm going to pull the leafing off of Marigolds. I'm going to put this one back here because I want to start adding a little bit of volume so that the piece doesn't have sort of a cartoonish flat back. So you can see a little bit of that color, even though you can't necessarily see the marigold from this view, but you can still see that there's color, which gives it a little bit more depth. I'm going to take the buds off of this. Again, pull off these leaves, marigolds. I love the way marigolds smell. Oh, look, there's my spider right on top of the hydrangea. Well, the spider's just gonna stay there, I guess. I've put this down a little bit lower to again give it a little bit more depth in the arrangement. I'm gonna keep going with my marigolds. I happen to love the way marigolds smell. I know that a lot of people aren't the biggest fan, but I think they're fantastic. I put her down right there. And I like how this marigold is picking up the zinnia color that's right here. So I'm going to kind of continue with that theme. And the only reason that I'm stripping off all of the leaves from the marigold is I find that they tend to brown a lot faster than the rest of the marigold. The marigolds will last for quite a while, but if you don't want that sort of like yellowy brownish color thing happening with the marigolds, then it's just easier to sort of take off all of the leaves before you arrange it. That one down there. And so as I'm doing this, again, I can kind of adjust some of my other pieces. And actually cut this one down just a little bit. I kind of like her doing this little scenario now. Okay. So I'm going to go in definitely with a lot more of my marigolds. I'm going to find some taller ones. There are just spiders everywhere today.
Amy, Gabriella just asked us another excellent question. How frequently would you recommend changing the water in arrangement, especially considering the type of container that we're using for today?
I would do it every other day, honestly, if you can, if you have the gumption to do so. I mean, obviously, fresh water is going to help keep it, it's going to help maintain it a lot better than dirty water. So, I mean, as much as you can, I think that would be great. If you can only do it like twice, I think that's still even fine. But yeah, I would do it if this was at my house. I would change out the water, I would say every other day. And again, because it has the chicken wire, it's going to be a lot easier to, you know, hold it up and then sort of like gently tip it out and then refill it that way.
And I know the other thing that you've mentioned you do to help preserve arrangements is with that chicken wire, it's also easy to remove anything that's starting to fade and either add in something else or kind of zhuzh the remaining pieces.
Exactly. And there are going to be elements that are going to fade faster than others. So you can just pull them out and then replace them with either similar things or different things that you find that are in bloom, which is one of the nice things, again, about chicken wire is that you won't really have to like monkey up the arrangement too much to be able to get all that stuff in and out relatively easily.
And our friend Rosie, who's joining us for the first time today, mentioned that she loves to use vegetables and fruit, which took me back to a couple of the fun workshops we've done, including those where that can be a great thing to sub in as some of the blooms start to fade.
Definitely. Okay.
It's very hard for me to eat a clementine without thinking about putting it on a stick in a vase now.
And then sticking it into an arrangement. So I am thinking that I want to bring a little bit more to the back. See the way how the back is a little cartoonishly flat, which I don't really like. So I'm going to start to fill this out with a little bit more volume. I'm going to do that by first putting in some more of my basil. I'm going to cut this. So even though it's the back, you don't really see it. I just think that it helps actually from the front when this is a little bit more round and has a little bit more volume, because then when you look at it from the front, it has a little bit more depth. So I'm actually going to go in back here and put in just a couple of the marigolds. So that, you know, the back isn't completely naked. You have a little bit of something back there. But then see how you can see this like through here, how it's starting to give it a little bit more volume as well. And I'm going to do that same thing over here on this side right here. It's a little marigold heavy right here, but I think that's okay. Although I am gonna, I don't want it to be on the same plane. I want it to have a little bit more depth. So I just shortened it. I'm gonna tuck her in a little bit more. Yeah, like that. But again, you can see this through here. So again, it's giving it a little bit more volume. I'm going to go in with some more celosia now at this point. I really love kind of having some of the flowers sort of together, almost as if they're sisters hanging out, but one's a little bit taller than the other, even though they kind of look the same, they're just slightly different. But I like having my flowers have, you know, a friend or a relative to talk to in the arrangement. All right, I'm gonna put this, so I want it to face a little bit more out this way. I'm gonna actually stick it slightly tweaking some stuff. Okay, so I filled in with a little bit more celosia, and I'm starting to kind of tweak the arrangement slightly because I'm not loving the placement of everything right now. So I'm actually going to take this big chunk of basil out, and I'm going to just shorten it up a little bit. So it's a little bit more in like that. Yeah, it's better. Then I'm going to take the short piece, and I'm going to put her down in there. And the one thing you always want to do is sort of like check to see where your water line is to make sure that all of your stems are actually going in. Okay, so I'm going to go in with one more zinnia.
No, Willow, lay down.
I'm going to go with this little peach one right here. And I'm going to put that one right there.
Amy, Mary just asked if you have information on the variety and varietal of the marigolds, since they are so beautifully sweet and fragrant.
I do not. I would have to ask Bob Fulham, who grows them, since these are not ones that came from our garden. So I don't know the answer to that. And these are also, you know, not to feel badly if you grow marigolds at home, but these are under a hoop house. They are under the care of an entire staff that they specifically only grow flowers. So they know they've been doing this for like 30 years. So he knows how to grow a really big, thick stem, strong stemmed flower. So like even just in comparison to like some of the things that we grow here at Hillwood, and we have obviously the best gardeners and horticulturalists growing our stuff as well. So that I think for your average gardener, if you're trying to like look at some of the things that you get versus some of the things that you're growing, if you are not out there, you know, every week fertilizing them, if you're not out there every week weeding and, you know, deadheading them and all of these different things, then your product isn't going to be quite the same. But you shouldn't feel badly about that because, like I said, Bob and like us at Hillwood, there's an entire staff who is helping do that. So unless you have your own garden staff, I would not worry about if yours are not quite the same. So now that I have my last zinnia in, I'm going to start to go in a little bit more with my basil. So I'm going to look for any sort of bald spots, which I know I can see like right here. There's a little bald spot over here. And I'm just going to go in and start to fill in with the basil. And then there's one little spot back in here. I'd like to kind of put a little bit more. Because basil smells amazing, just by the way.
And Amy, when you get a chance, can you show us the front of the arrangement again? I know we've been troubleshooting the back and spinning it around.
Okay, so right now, this is the front of the arrangement.
Perfect.
So what I'm going to do, now that I have it essentially filled in, I'm going to go in with my, what I like to call delicate blooms or my little touches of whimsy, which today we're going to be doing with gomphrena and also the sea oats. So again, because these are nice, these are very tiny, I wanted to save them to the end. That way they didn't get crushed or lost in the mix of things. And again, these have just like a fantastic little shape, a little curve to them. So I'm not gonna fight that. I'm gonna let that do its own thing. All right, I'm gonna put one more in. Have her come out front here. Okay, so now that I've done the Gomfrima, the last little bit I'm gonna do is my seal. And if you picked up containers from Hillwood, the sea oats are actually from property today, which is kind of fun. I'm going to actually take off the leaves from there because I really just want it to be this really delicate, dangly thing happening and not be distracted with the leaves. And I'm going to make a line, which I'm going to just show you in a second, of these sea oats. See how I've made this sort of, bring it back, sort of diagonal line. And from here, I think I'm going to add a couple more down here at the bottom. I'm going to keep this in this diagonal line here, but I'm going to kind of fill in a little bit towards the back with them as well. Kind of see what's happening there. Let's see. So I'm happy with what's going on, but I just need to fix a couple of these before we will be completely done. And this one gal is being a little problematic right here. Let's see if I can fix that slightly. Yeah, that works better. Okay, so I'm happy with what is going on so far. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it back slightly so that you can see it. Let's see. Okay, so then here's the back of it. And then this is the front. Pull that up a little bit too. Maybe I see if I can get something a little bit taller. Let's see. Let's see if this is gonna be too tall. Yeah, that's too tall. Still a little tall, isn't it? All right. Well, let's see. I guess we're just going to go back to what it was on, so you won't see the bottom part very well, but you'll be able to see the whole arrangement. You can tilt the screen down just a little bit. Let me hold up the cloth. Will kind of help to black out the rest of it. So can you guys see that? Does it need to be up more still, or is it relatively?
I think that's a pretty great view.
Okay.
It looks amazing.
So now, what questions do you have, or has anything come up that you're trying?
Yeah, we've got a couple of great questions from Bob asking if there's a place in the city or in close-in suburbs in Northern Virginia where one could find cut flowers kind of similar to the Culpeper farm you mentioned. And my guess is that the best place I've heard you recommend before is farmer markets where, you know,
Definitely.
I don't know if it's the Culpeper farm, but there are flower farms that come to share and sell it at those.
So one of the other places that I really like is Linville Farm. They're also in Culpeper, but the other thing, you know, I really think like if you just go to your local farmers market, you'll be able to find, you know, a local flower market as well. But you can also then just sort of Google, because I know there are a lot more flower farms than just Woolham and Linvale, but those are the two that I've been working with for the last several years, which is why I keep using them. But I know that if you Google, you know, flower farms in the DMV, you'll come up with a lot, because there have been places that I've seen when I've gone to different locations for farmers market that I'm like, oh, I've never even heard of this place. So I would definitely go on a bit of a Google search to look for them. Yes.
Excellent. And Catherine just shared in the chat that Linville also goes to the DuPont Circle Farmers Market.
Oh.
Which is fantastic. The other thing Bob asked about is if you have any suggestions for where to find smaller amounts of chicken wire. I know you need the big industrial ones because you're making probably 20 arrangements a week every week.
So what I would recommend first would be to try a craft store, because I know, I mean, I haven't been inside a craft store since before the pandemic. So, but I know that like when I went to Michael's, they had the galvanized chicken wire in like sheets, like just small sheets, and you could buy like, you know, 5 sheets or something like that. The other thing is, I think
Catherine actually just
sale will have like a smaller roll of it. It's still going to be a roll, but I think it's a much smaller roll than you would find at a hardware store.
Excellent. Catherine also shared that American Plant Food has some smaller sizes.
Yeah.
Which is great. And scrolling back up, Elizabeth shared in the chat that if you Google Woolham and farmers markets, you can see which ones they participate in. They also go to the DuPont and the Courthouse farmers markets.
Yeah, I do know that Woolham is at several, or like at a couple of different ones as well in the DC area.
And
So,
Lynn mentioned that she was able to find that smaller amount of chicken wire for arrangements online.
Oh, good. Yeah.
As well.
So yeah, I'm sure like sure Amazon probably has it, but you know, if you don't want to support Jeff Bezos' rocket, then you can look at a smaller venue in your town.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank everybody who's just helped chime in and do some problem solving for us and some sourcing of great, tried and true, beloved floral farms in the region. We are now almost at 2:30, so I just want to take a moment and thank you all for spending the afternoon with us, and to invite everyone to participate in our very first celebration of Member Appreciation Days, which will be September 1st through 5th. I dropped a link in the chat with more information on the program. And of course, for those of you who are not yet members, I'd like to invite you to come and join us. It's never too late, and we'd love to continue having your support. At this point, I think we get to go to show and tell, unless there are any other questions. All right, well, I'm gonna start. Oh, something just popped up in my chat. Excellent. So I am going to see if I can get some folks to come on screen. I see several folks already have their cameras on, and Lynn is already aimed perfectly at her arrangement. Let me see.
Okay, this is mine. It's kind of taller, so I'm going to have to drop it down a little bit. But it basically, it kind of has everything from my garden, plus some goldenrod and some Queen Anne's lace from my field outside my yard. But the greens I used was bells of Ireland, and I have some fennel sprigs,
Nice.
Russian sage, zinnias, garden phlox, California poppies, black-eyed Susans, echinacea, etc. Oh,
I
and
love it.
my marigolds were of the garden variety, the short stem, so I kind of
Right.
tucked them in corners here, which I kind of liked.
That's wonderful. It's and I think that it's amazing that all came from your garden and from property. So
Yeah,
kudos for having a wonderful garden.
I finally got to visit Hillwood in July with my friend Lynn Feinberg, and we were saying, gee, we wish we could have met you, Amy, because we've attended so many of your sessions, but maybe next time.
Yeah, definitely drop me an email. Like sometimes I'm just hiding in my office because it's 100 degrees outside, but I'm always happy to come out and greet people. So yeah, if you ever come back, just shoot me an email and I can definitely figure out a time when we can get some coffee or something.
Thanks very much.
Wonderful job.
Thanks.
It is lovely. I'm so glad we've been able to build this virtual community and gather with so many of you month after month, and that we keep getting new folks to join us. And I hope that they are as hooked on these virtual programs and on Hillwood as I am. But it's also nice to start to be able to connect with folks again, especially out in Hillwood's gardens. I was thrilled to meet Jerry in the flesh at a dance performance we hosted last month. So it is always fun to put a face to the Zoom name. All right, I'm going to see Julia. It looks like you are all ready. Oh, and you were unmuted and I accidentally muted you. So I think you need to unmute, and let me
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Yes.
So I used since my container was one that was leaking, I used the one we used last year, which is a great deal smaller.
Okay.
But I was able to use most of the flowers.
It looks wonderful. I'm sorry that the container was not working out for you, but
And I do, I've got a list of 3 folks so far that I will be following up with. If you also picked up materials from Hillwood and are having issues with the container, please let me know in the chat. We will absolutely, Amy and I will touch base and we'll be in touch with all of you by the end of the day to figure out how to make this right.
These are beautiful for a mantle, but I wouldn't put them on the tape.
It looks gorgeous though. So even though it is, I know it's a
Maybe
small
that's
container, at least you'll have some flowers left over too.
Yep, no, it's gorgeous.
I love it. Wonderful job.
All right. Let's see. Beth, it looks like you are ready and waiting. Let me ask you to unmute.
Mute myself.
Heck.
Hold on a second. Yeah, I used a vase from an in-person class. I'm just gonna, this is on my iPad, so I'm not sure you guys are gonna be able to see it. I'm gonna do that. There we go. It's gonna be impossible to really see because I don't know how to direct my camera. It looks just like Amy's. And I don't think you can really see it. I'm sorry. I don't know how to use the iPad camera, but
It's gorgeous.
anyways, hard to see it, but super fun. Thank you both.
Oh, thank you. It looks wonderful.
All right, let me get back. Thank you all for bearing with me as always as I try to furiously click over and make sure I don't miss anybody. Catherine, that looks gorgeous in the small view on my screen. Let's make that
Mine is
big.
tighter for sure. I'm having dinner guests, so I like a low, I'm just having 2 other people, but I did, and I guess my hydrangeas are green, so I guess that's not Limelight, is it? Because the
It
lime,
could be. I can't really
Yeah.
tell from that. It looks like it might be an Annabelle
okay.
hydrangea.
I have this one red hydrangea from my neighbor's yard. She's got some heirloom red ones.
Oh, that's
I
gorgeous.
love. I
Yeah.
only could take one, but thank you, because it did get me out of my comfort zone. I usually do very monotone things, and I love yours and everyone else's. Everyone did a great job.
Well, and the one thing that I always joke around about, I'm like, all colors in nature go together. But I do think that like when it is at the height of summer and you do put reds with like pinks or, things that you wouldn't necessarily ever think that you would want to do, like yellows and pinks or, whatever. It works because the flowers are just, you see them out in your garden that way. So I think that's why it works so well when you then transition it into a floral arrangement. So yeah, I love that you do have that one big antique red hydrangea in there. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun.
Thank you.
All right, Christina, I think I just asked you to unmute. I'm going to go ahead and make you big here.
Hi.
Hello.
So I was very inspired by the height of the marigolds, so I ended up keeping those the tallest.
Excellent.
I've never seen them so big. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
And while I was working on it, I thought I didn't have any bulb spots, but seeing it on the camera here, I'm thinking I might try to find something to go here. But I mean, it's huge.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And it is. I think that, it just goes to show like whatever it is that sort of inspires you, that's what you go with. So it's like you liked having those tall marigolds. So I think that's wonderful that you use that as your height element in there. Wonderful.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, Nancy, let's take a look at your arrangements. Oops, did I turn off your camera rather than making you big? There you are.
Hello. You're muted.
There we go.
Okay, we've had a little technical difficulty today.
Okay.
So here we go.
Oh, that looks gorgeous.
All kinds of posies from the local farm stand and the farmers market.
Nice. Lovely. That looks fantastic.
So there we are. And Karen has some beautiful ones too.
It's just chock full of everything. I don't know if I
Oh,
thought
wow. Yeah.
the rules, but it was fun. Putting it
Amazing. Yeah. I love the amaranthus in there too. That's really fun.
in the front.
Nice.
I think.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Looks lovely, ladies.
We had fun with that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very much.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, Jerry, you're in.
Let's see.
Who would have thought 2 years ago that iPhone and iPad filmography would become a necessary skill for everyone?
There, yeah. No,
Beautiful.
I substituted a vase that I had here when it started leaking. This one, my friend did with me, and we improvised with a plastic bag, but hers started leaking during the sessions. So we both had, can you see but this one?
Yeah. Oh, gorgeous. It looks lovely.
And then this is the other.
Oh, well, they look wonderful. I'm sorry about the containers not doing what they're supposed to do,
That happens.
but they look absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you. It was another great session.
Oh, thank you for joining us again.
And there is still time to pop a note in the chat or just reach out to me. Let me know. We do want to make sure we will be in touch this afternoon to try and find a way to make that right. So thank you. I know Faye just chimed in, and we'll be following up soon. Lynn.
Hi, so here it is. These are Hillwood flowers, but I wanted to point out I do have a very small garden. And so I don't know if you can see it, but I have just a couple of black-eyed Susans from that garden.
Oh, wonderful.
So that was very exciting for me. And here's the rest of it. I love this class because I just love all the color. And zinnias are one of my favorite flowers. So thank you. It was wonderful.
Well, I'm glad that you also added in your own little touch with the black-eyed Susans. They're one of my absolute favorites. They're hard to find in terms of being able to buy them in bulk from, from a farm or anywhere like that. So, if I was able to, I would have incorporated those. So I'm glad that you were able to incorporate them yourself.
Thank you.
Gorgeous.
Thank you.
All right. I don't think I see anybody who has their camera on who we have not shared yet. If that's because my memory is more like a goldfish, please wave frantically, or if you are off camera but interested in sharing, please pop on. We'd love to highlight your beautiful work. But I'd also just like to reiterate that we're so pleased to have spent a beautiful, though disgustingly hot, Friday afternoon with you indoors and virtually making gorgeous arrangements to celebrate the best of summer, even when it is 100 degrees outside. We'll meet again next month on September 17th. There is a link in the chat, but tickets for that did go on sale just this afternoon. So please visit our website, register through there, and for the 5 people who I have on my list, we'll reach out about making those leaky containers right. And if you are not on that list, you can send an email to info@hillwoodmuseum.org and let us know at a later date so we can make sure that we make everything smooth sailing. And I'm so sorry that we had this problem. We'll definitely be in touch with our distributors as well as with you to loop back on that. I hope you enjoy a beautiful summer weekend, and that those of you who are in DC will come visit Hillwood soon.
Great. Thank you all
Bye.
for participating. Have a wonderful afternoon.